Hey everyone, it's your host here, Emir. I'm a co-founder of HockeyStack, a no-code SaaS analytics tool that helps you find the highest converting marketing channels with the best LTV and product engagement, optimize your conversion rate, and decrease churn. In this episode, I'm talking with Bethany, who is the co-founder of Sendspark. Enjoy. Hey Bethany, thank you for coming to my show. I'm really excited for this and I'm really happy that you accepted my offer. Can you tell us a little bit about your background?
Yeah, so before starting Sendspark, I've worked at startups myself. I was the head of marketing at two other startups. I did Venture for America right after college. So that was kind of a cool way to start working at the ground floor of a startup. And I just kind of fell in love with marketing. And I, now Sendspark is really a tool that helps marketers as well. So all about marketing for startups.
Yeah, speaking of Sendspark, I know Sendspark, but can you tell about Sendspark?
Yeah, so Sendspark is a video platform to help businesses connect with customers. So there's kind of two ways that we do that. You can either create videos to send out to customers. So think like video emails, video messages, like video support chats. And then you can also request videos back from customers. So if you want to get customer testimonials or screen recordings or other things like that, but it's kind of your two-way asynchronous video that can kind of sit and bridge the gap between Zoom, which is all synchronous, and email, which lacks the context of video.
Yeah, like I'm doing cold outbound myself. I have never sent a video to our customers, but I've sent like videos to our prospects. So I know that like video makes it super easy to like connect with people that you don't know. And like it was a pain of mine, like connecting with people was a pain for me. Like how did the idea come to you? Was it a pain for you as well in your career as a marketer?
Yeah, so there's definitely the pain of like it's hard to connect with people. And like very specifically, like my co-founder and I used to work together. Actually, both of the last two startups we're at. And so I was doing like email marketing and trying to connect with customers. And like the biggest thing that was getting to me was the way people were responding to the emails I was sending out. They're like, stop spamming me. I don't want to hear this. Like, I didn't subscribe to this list. And I took a step back and I'm like, I don't want to be the one sending like annoying messages that people don't want. And so I started complaining to my then coworker, like, I don't want to be annoying people. Like, we're at a really cool company. We want to show off what we're doing. What's a way that we can do this that like people actually like getting, like, without being annoying? And so, and he's like a product guy, he's a designer. So he opens, then he used to use Sketch. Now we're Figma people. But he opens Sketch and starts designing. And it kind of came down to like, how do we make this messaging a lot more human and a lot more personal and a lot more authentic? And so that's kind of how we got on the video train. And even now, like, I really think of Sendspark to be less like totally cold prospecting and more connecting with someone when they actually are like interested and want to hear from you. So it's kind of like maybe a step in where they've signed up for your service and you have a free trial and they're trying to figure out how to use it and how can you provide a really good experience. Or, you're already talking to them, they have questions, and then you can answer them really succinctly and personally. I think that it's less about just like sending out videos and more about like cutting through the noise, like being a human in the inbox and making that authentic connection.
Yeah, like with COVID, people understand video like really matters and we all use Zoom, etc. But when you first started out, was it challenging to like convince people that they actually like should use video instead of text?
For sure. Well, it's funny because we started the company in 2019. So that's pre-pandemic, pre-COVID. And I remember we were going around, we started in San Antonio, Texas. And so we were going around to like all of the startups that we knew and like, all of our friends and trying to, figure out who's really the best user, like is it sales, is it support? And so we're telling them like, you need to use video, you need to put a face first and connect with customers. And everyone was like, wait, video? That's so unprofessional. Like, why would I ever make a video of myself? And now it's so funny because like the whole world has moved to video. And the question is not, should I use video? It's how should I use video? Like what should I say? But yeah, there was definitely a lot of like push early on, and we've kind of seen we've kind of seen that change over the last year and a half with COVID and the rise of hybrid workplaces.
You mentioned that like you can use Sendspark for marketing as well. So you don't actually like focusing on sales, because like there are a lot of tools coming out on like only sales, video for sales, etc. Are you planning on like keeping that, or are you planning on like cutting some features and focusing on some specific use cases?
Yeah, so the main use case we're focused on is actually customer success, which I think in a way is the most like, it's the most narrow and most broad use case at the same time. But it's like really what happens after someone starts using your platform, and how do you provide a really good experience? And so on some level that can be marketing, where there's like automated emails coming out of like, hey, you signed up, but you haven't used this feature. Here's a video that shows you how to do it. Or, hey, here's a video that shows you how great your life would be if you were successful with our product. So there's that kind of like marketing automation aspect for customer success. And then a lot of it too is like personal, more hand-holding, think like enterprise customer success, where you have your customer success manager who's really reaching out and taking the time to build really strong relationships with clients. So those are kind of the two angles we're focused on. And like that often extends to sales. And we have a lot of like salespeople, especially account managers and account executives using the platform. But it's really not prospecting the same way, because I think that like that's more of like a gimmick. Like you can just try to like be really loud in email and maybe it'll work for a second, but we're focused on like what's actually the best way to connect with people and build relationships.
Yeah. So like you mentioned, it was really challenging to convince people at first. Like after like how many months, or how many like what was the first time that you like start seeing traction, and like how was it?
Yeah, great question. Like it kind of depends. Like, so super early on, well, okay, so like the reason why it's a little bit complicated is you're trying to make sure that someone's going to use the product before you build it, right? And so that's kind of the tricky part, because you're trying to like, we're trying to validate, hey, if we build this, will people use it? And we're getting a lot of people saying no, but we kind of had enough people say yes, or like be excited about it, that we're like, you know, it's worth trying to build it and putting it in the hands of people. And so it wasn't really like, even at that point when we decided we were going to do it, like it was still a little risky till we really put it out there. And then I think things like we did Product Hunt, we did Appsumo, these kind of like launches really helped to gain traction, because that's where you find a lot of early adopters. Because like, you know, when we first released it, like it was 1/10 of the platform, 1/10 or smaller of the platform that we really wanted to build. And even now, like the product's pretty good, but there's so much more we want to do. So there's always kind of that trade-off of like build a little, release a little, make sure you're finding the people who it's useful at that time. Because I think like as we build out more features, like we're going to build out more team collaboration features and work with bigger teams. But right now it's really strong for individuals. So that's another like kind of challenge is like your target market might grow with your, or might evolve with your product. And so we're trying to stay focused and make sure like we have what our target market needs right now and will need, even though we can only build one thing at a time.
Yeah. So you mentioned Appsumo, and like we also launched on Appsumo. So like I want to ask you about like your experience with it, but not in like in these terms. Like for example, there are a lot of agency owners on Appsumo, and our experience with that was, so HockeyStack is an analytics tool, and we launched features that we were genuinely excited about, such as like segments, insights, etc. And they were still like, they were not excited about those exciting features. They were excited about reporting, PDF, CSV. They were asking about like, when will the CSV come out? When will the like white label come out? And it was really like challenging. How was your experience with that?
Yeah, no, it's really funny you say that, because we have like an equivalent feature, which is something that isn't really important to like most of our users, but it's been so important to Appsumo users. And I think it like depends. Like, so when we did Appsumo, we kind of geared it a little bit more towards agency owners, and Sendspark has a feature. So with like most video platforms, you know, you're in like an account, and then you can use that account to create and share videos. With Sendspark, we make it really easy to manage multiple accounts. So you can set up like multiple workspaces, and each of those workspaces is branded differently. And that's a really good agency feature because you can create like a video workspace for each of your clients and give them their own branding. So we kind of like tailored that launch a little bit towards agencies with the hopes that like, you know, they'll use it, they'll be our, you know, they'll also, you know, use Sendspark for their clients, and it will be a good way to kind of get in front of more people, which I think has worked well. And then there's one feature that's just been really funny that we're finally doing. It took a little bit. So we launched in January, and we're about to release this like either like likely in September, which is CNAME. So the ability to use your own domain and like totally white label Sendspark. And that has been like, we're getting like hundreds of requests from Appsumo people, and a couple of our other users have thought it's like cool, but it's not like the same way. So I definitely see what you mean, where like, if that's not really your target, you got to be careful with Appsumo because you might end up building the wrong direction. With us, it's really only been that one feature, and we're excited. We're going to do it, and I think it'll be good for everyone.
Like
on your company.
Like when you were on Appsumo, and like I can imagine that they're still requesting the same features right now. How are you like prioritizing feature requests coming from Appsumo users and monthly users?
I mean, we're trying to get the low-hanging fruit first. So like what's something that everyone's gonna want, and then what's also like the easiest to build. So we're trying to get some like quick wins out. Like the thing that was tough with us for Appsumo is like when we launched, like people found a lot of bugs, right? Like, and so we probably spent the first month we were live just like crushing bugs, and it was awesome because like people were testing on like different devices, different browsers, like things that we didn't test internally for, or just like wouldn't have thought of. So I feel like people, just like the fact that we had to fix bugs made it seem like we're releasing features kind of slowly. Now they're like, it's been months, like what have you been doing? We're like, it's so much more stable, like things that used to break don't break anymore, like this is great. And then like really now we're kind of at the point where we're starting to like crank out on features, but I think like there, you know, we kind of we use this app, it's awesome, what's it called, user feed, to like log all feature requests, and so that'll give us an idea for like who's requesting it. And I think that like our rule is if one person requests it, you log it but ignore it. If 2 people request it, it's probably something that 10 people want. We got that from a friend at Promoter.io, and I think that's pretty good. So we kind of keep track of like if at least one person from Appsumo and then one like non-Appsumo person requests it, it's probably pretty important. That being said, there's just a ton that we want to do, so there's still a lot to like prioritize, and then it's like, you know, what can we get out the fastest? It's going to have the biggest impact.
Yeah. So we're approaching it kind of like the same way. So we are like first attacking the low hanging fruits and at the same time working on some big features. Like how did you reach the first 100 customers at Sendspark? And like what was the strategy behind that? Because it's the part that most of us struggle with, because after the first 100 customers it's kind of easier, but the first 100 is really hard in my opinion.
Yeah. Okay. So this is so like I feel like every founder wants to do product-led growth, and like, you know, we're all like product people, like that's why we started a company, like in SaaS at least. And product-led growth is so cool, but if you don't have like your initial customers using the product, you can't really get product-led growth. So like with Sendspark, theoretically the best way we should be growing is, you know, a lot of natural virality. As people are like sending out videos and requesting videos, other people see they're from Sendspark and sign up. And we definitely have that now, but like it doesn't start there because who's sending out videos? So we've done a lot to kind of like spur that initial stuff. So like Appsumo was huge for us. We brought on maybe like 3,000, maybe a little more users in a really short period of time. Product Hunt is good as well, but like not as long lasting because people don't really pay for it. And then it's just like a lot of the normal stuff, right? Of like reaching out like to people locally who might support you because you're building in your city even before you have a good product. Like we started in San Antonio, so there's a lot of startups there, or just like people that were investing in the city that like when we were super early, we're like, hey, can you please try this out? And like they were happy to be our guinea pigs. maybe they wouldn't, pay a ton for it yet, but they were like willing to try it and give us feedback and help make it better. So there was a lot of local stuff we did and a lot of like direct outreach. And I think that like founders should not be afraid to like tap into their own networks too, like reach out to people who went to college with you, who, are in the same city, who like anything you can think of, and just like reach out and ask. And like, the direct outreach works really well. We also did a lot of content and like still do, but that's kind of like your product-led growth, which is like, yeah, of course you want to do it, but it can take a while. Like we just recently got a featured snippet, and that's driving like hundreds of leads a month. But it's like luck, you can't like plan to get a featured snippet. Like you just write a bunch and hope it happens. And we got the featured snippet over a year after the article was published. So like there's some kind of stuff you want to lay the groundwork early from content, product-led growth. But I think the early stuff, you got to do the things that don't scale, and like no one likes outreach, I think, but that's just what you got to do, is like reach out to people and follow up multiple times and just do it.
Yeah. I'm really curious about like, if you were starting now, would you do some things differently? For example, like a lot of people are like building an audience before the product is a big trend right now. Would you like start building an audience before that if you were starting today?
I don't know. I think that yeah, I've seen that. Like Nathan Locke published like a strategy recently I thought was really good, of like try to sell your competitors' products and make sure that you're able to sell it before building it yourself, which I think is smart. But I also think that like you can't always do that. Like at least for us, we learned so much by having like customers using it and sharing feedback and like meeting with them, that like I don't really know if that would have made sense. Like I don't even know if we would know exactly what our audience needed in order to be building it. Like I think just a lot of stuff, it's a lot of chicken and egg, and you kind of have to do both things at the same time and like wiggle your way forward. I think that if I did like one thing differently, I would just keep in mind that it's often harder to change things that have already been published than to like do them right the first time. So I think I would make sure that like sometimes, especially early on, we're like, hey, we'll just put this out there, see what people think, change it later. And a lot of that stuff still has not been changed. So if anything, I think it would be just do a lot more like distribution as we go, but really make sure to measure twice, cut once when it comes to like product and releases, because especially like if you try to release a feature and then take it away, people get upset about it. Or if you just like change the design, that can be confusing, or it can just be like not really a priority. So you kind of release something that was 80% and it's like good enough, you never change it, but like not good enough that it's actually good. So I think that it would just be like focus a little bit more on planning exactly what we're going to build before we build it. But I don't think you necessarily need a distribution channel. I think that like the lean startup methodology is great in terms of like put something out in people's hands, make it better, keep building.
Yeah, I agree with you on that, because like growing an audience without a product seems risky to me, because you don't really know if they will be your customers or if they will like love the product that you're building, because it's really different than like building an audience. And you mentioned like a mistake that you have done, I guess. So I want to ask, what was the like biggest mistake you have done with Sendspark, if there's one?
Yeah, I don't know if there's like a big mistake. It's just knowing that things often take longer than you expect, and that like time is the biggest thing that you're battling all the time. Like just like time in the day, like time that other people in the team have. So like prioritization is everything. And there's often a lot of like pressure, and I'm sure a lot of it is like internal too, to like always be shipping, always be putting things out. You see other people that, are always putting stuff out. But I think that it's really just about like making sure that like one thing we've learned is like if you put something out, like it's probably not going to change for longer than you'd expect, like maybe a year. We're actually about to like release all these updates to a feature that we put out probably the first time was over a year ago. So it's like we put this like feature out, and then we like we, got a lot of feedback, and then we did the second version, and now we're putting it out. And like in our heads, when we did that, we're like, oh, we're going to release updates like right away. But it's like, well, no, because then other stuff was like higher priority. So it's just making sure, like, if something's on your list, like you're like, hey, we're going to do onboarding this week. Don't just like half-ass onboarding, like do onboarding right, because you don't want to have to come back to it in 3 weeks. You're going to want to do something else in 3 weeks. So I think that would just be like the main thing I think we're better at now, but early on we kept being like, oh, we'll just do the bare minimum and come back to it. And like when like in all your free time, like it's not going to happen. So know that what you do now is going out there for a long time.
So you mentioned prioritizing tasks and planning some like tasks. So what's your current tool set for your team to like plan tasks and prioritize certain goals?
So for the dev team, we just use Jira for like sprint planning and stuff. We don't really use it, right? Like I think our CTO is like, this is not really Scrum. It's like, I don't know, mostly Scrum. So we use Jira, and then for like growth stuff, we honestly just use a Google spreadsheet, and we do like growth experiments. So I actually wrote a blog post about it recently, so it's on our blog, but we basically do ICE scoring. So like the impact, cost, and what is it? Impact, cost, and ease of getting out features. And then we'll give, them their ICE score and run different experiments based on that. So that's kind of how we keep track. And then, it's a lot of like Slack, a lot of Google Docs, a lot of Sendspark videos, of course. But I don't know, I've been like hearing about better like project management tools, and I'm kind of interested in trying something for more of like the whole team that's better than Jira, but it's hard to leave Google Sheets,
Exactly. So we also talked about this over email, and after that we met with the 500 startups team in Istanbul, in my city. So you were recently like founded by 500 startups, and can you tell us about your experience with 500 startups and why you chose them?
Yeah, so we love 500 startups. I think we had talked to a bunch of accelerator programs, but one of the things we really liked about 500 startups was like how personalized the experience is. So you have your own like lead, and basically like your own like investment lead who works with you the whole program, and then you get an entrepreneur in residence that also like works with you. So it's really personalized to like the goals you're trying to achieve. And then for us, like we've been really focused on product-led growth. And so like their team that we talked to was like very into that and had really good experience, and just like looking at other startups that have come out of 500, like Intercom, and like there's just been like a ton of amazing ones where like that seemed really strong. And also their community is really international, which we love. Like we have an international team versus the ones that are like specifically localized to different cities. So yeah, we love them. We had a great experience, especially like it's just so great to have a community of founders. I think there's a lot of ways that like people create their own communities, but for us, like 500 startups like had one and welcomed us with open arms, and it's just been great. Did you end up doing the program yourself?
We're still like trying to decide if we should get funded or stay bootstrapped. In the meantime, like we're talking with other accelerators too. But we're still like trying to decide if we should be bootstrapped or get funded.
Yeah.
Did you have a time frame that you like also thought about that too?
Yeah, definitely. I think I mean, I think it depends, and I think it depends a lot on like the startup and like what you need to like get off the ground. And like for us, like especially I think with the product-led growth route, you need more of like a product before you can really like tap into the growth. And so that's why we ended up going more of the venture funding route. And it also just like the timing, I think really worked out in our favor, that like a lot of companies are looking to go like hybrid and use more video. And so there's just like a really big opportunity right now that like we didn't want to fall behind. We wanted to be able to capitalize on. So we wanted the funding to be able to just move fast and also like invest in a product that will then start growing itself. But I think that it's just so unique to the company. And I also think that there's like often a lot of like pressure to go more of a venture route because that's what you see. But it's kind of like, I don't know. I feel like being bootstrapped is one of the best kept secrets. It's like, no, there's a great way to grow where you actually own your company, and like, you don't have to write investor updates. You just do what you think is best, without any screening. But then there's also the benefit of like, if you, like, I think it mostly comes down to like the investors and the people you want to work with. Like I would say, like every investor we've taken money from, we like genuinely really like them as people and like want them as part of the team. And that's made a difference. Like I wouldn't take money from someone that I like, wouldn't want to go grab dinner with or like actually work with.
Yeah, we talked about this with Andy too, who is the founder of Postega. So they also got funded by Tiny Seed. They're like a seed fund for bootstrappers. So like I also think that more than the money, like the network and the things that you can learn matters. So even if like other accelerators or other investors give you more money, you should like choose the ones that you want to grab, want to have a dinner with.
Yeah.
So I definitely agree with you on that. So I have one last question. I'm genuinely curious about this because I'm really struggling with planning out my day and choosing tasks. So like, how do you spend a regular workday at Sendspark? What are your current tasks and how do you plan them?
Yeah. So I mean, it definitely like depends on the day in terms of like what I'm doing. One framework I really like is like, I'll try to pick like just like the 3 things I want to get done that day, like no more than 3. And then like, if there's more than 3, then that just goes on a different day later that week. And then those are kind of the 3 I'll try to focus on, and especially like do in the morning when I have more energy. And like, obviously like things like answering support tickets, like emails, to just kind of like fit themselves in. But I find that like, if I end up writing too many things down, I like won't do the ones that are important. So that's why I try to like limit myself. Some days I'll kind of have an exception, just be like, I'm just going to get rid of like all of the like quick tasks like that are overdue. But that's kind of how I do it. It just depends. Like what I'm doing every day is like so different. Like, so we're actually planning a big launch on Product Hunt tomorrow. So like today's been around that, but like in terms of like if I'm actually doing the marketing myself, or if it's more like I'm focusing on the team, or like recently I had to like get a lot of accounting set up. So I was doing a lot of like accounting, talking to the accountant, things like that. It's just like soon we'll be doing hiring too. So every day is definitely different. But I'll just kind of map out like what are the 2 to 3 things I want done like definitely today. And then like I also have a list of like quick wins. So if I have time, I can just grab those. I think one of the things that's important to do as a founder that I didn't fully realize till like year 2 is when you give yourself a manageable amount of things to do, like you can be done. And if you don't, then you're never done. And that like works fine for like 1, like 2 years. And then you just kind of get to the point where you're like, shoot, like I'm always behind. Like, so I think it's important to be like, hey, I'm going to give myself a list that I'll actually be able to finish today, because then at the end of the day, I'll be like, cool, I did it. Like, I'm going to watch TV, or I'm going to like go for a run and like just feel great about myself. If you always stretch, then you never get there.
Yeah, getting 3 tasks out of like 4 tasks feels much better than getting 3 tasks out of a list of 15 different tasks. I definitely agree with you on that. And also like a tool that I recently discovered, Akiflow. I will leave a link to in the description. It really makes it really simple and effective. They use some kind of like psychological tricks. I don't know what they use, but it really makes you feel productive. And it's also completely free. So you can check it out too.
Cool. Yeah, please send me the link. I'll check it out.
Okay. So Bethany, thank you very much for coming to my show. I really enjoyed talking with you. So I will leave a link to Sendspark and your LinkedIn below, and the blog post that you mentioned, so people can check out Sendspark. Thank you very much for coming to my show.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.